that as I'm speaking, there are subtitles appearing at the bottom of your screen. And this is something new we're trying. So thank you for being our guinea pigs. We just want to see if there are ways that in the future we can make our webinars more accessible to more folks. So going on, I just want to, again, thank you all for being here. I know we're all busy and things in the world are hectic, so I do really appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is. So just to introduce myself, my name is Tara Anderson. I'm the manager of the MRSC Rosters Service, and I will be your presenter today. I also want to thank my colleagues, Leah Lasivita and Paige O'Sullivan, for helping us out with the recording and for offering technical support during the webinar today. So thanks to both of you. Before we jump in and get started, I'll just touch on some technical notes. During the webinar, if you have any trouble, you can call our front desk. The number is here on the slide. If you're having trouble with audio, please call and listen by phone. So there's the number there on the screen, and if you need assistance with that, again, you can chat in to the chat box or you can give us a call. And when you are getting ready to submit questions, you can expand your question box and type your question in, submit that to us. We'll be answering questions at the end of the webinar, but you can submit questions throughout. We'll collect them and touch on them later. And again, if you have technical issues, we'll address those right away. Just send those in to chat. We are going to be recording today's webinar, so I'll provide a recording to you all once that's available, and that way you can share it out with other folks in your office or agency if that's helpful. So we'll touch on the agenda. This webinar is meant for folks who are not currently members of the MRSC roster service, but are interested in learning how the service might be a valuable tool for your roster contracting needs. So we're going to review the membership. We'll talk about the legal notice posting. I'll go over the business application process, and then I'll also show you how your agency would use MRSC rosters if you did decide to join. And I will not be touching on purchasing or bidding procedures, but you can find more information about those items on the MRSC website or the MRSC rosters website. And in case you're not familiar with MRSC, I will give a quick introduction. MRSC Rosters is an associated service of the private nonprofit MRSC. We've been supporting Washington local governments for over 80 years through trusted consultation, research, training, and collaboration. We're funded primarily through a portion of the local share of the Washington State Liquor Revolving Fund, which means that all city and county elected officials and staff can access MRSC's services without paying any direct fees. In addition, we provide services to a few special district associations through contracts, and we offer fee-based services, including MRSC rosters. And feel free to visit the website. There's so many great resources there. A lot of awesome tools, and I would suggest poking around and exploring. We also have, I know, a lot of webinars coming up, so another thing to just check out under that training tab. So the MRSC rosters is an associated service, like I mentioned. In this video, you can see we have hundreds of participating public agencies. Currently, we have 608 participating agencies. Our service is a membership roster service. We host individual small public works rosters and consultant rosters, in addition to an optional vendor rosters in an online shared database, and we provide all of the legal and customer service maintenance needed to utilize a roster. We have been offering this service since 2007, when the City of Linwood discontinued their Puget Sound-based shared roster of 45 agencies. And now, like I mentioned, we're serving 608 Washington cities, counties, and special purpose districts. There are small agencies who use our service, like the Dayton School District and the North Beach Water District. And we also have large agencies using our service, such as Pierce County and the City of Spokane. And large agencies and small agencies alike have found that our service is really helpful. It just saves staff time and resources. So we do have a really high satisfaction rate among our public agency customers. And like I mentioned, that video shows where you can see the different agencies who are already using the service. I think it's always helpful to see who in your area is already using this. And then that gives you an opportunity to reach out to those agencies and check in with them and see what they feel about the service, how it works for them, that kind of thing. So I would encourage you, if you are interested in joining, to reach out to those folks. So specifically, what your membership would include, should you choose to join, is the hosting of your individual small public works roster and consultant roster within the shared online database, optional hosting of your individual vendor roster, hosting of the required roster legal notice on your behalf, customer support for business registration and application renewal, and the maintenance of the electronic business applications in the searchable database. So we're here to hold the hands of businesses as they're signing up. We offer all of that support that they need. And that is, I think, one of the areas where it does really save agencies the most time. So you can see that, it is a service that is unmatched in its value. For a really modest annual membership fee, we provide all of the support, the application maintenance, and we post that legal notice on behalf of our member agencies. This fee chart we're showing you here demonstrates that the fee is based on that 5-year average of your public agency's total capital expenditures. For example, if your total capital expenditures were less than $5 million over that 5-year as an average, then your fee is only $135 a year, which is pretty great for all that we do. And that includes the service of posting that legal notice on your behalf. So you can see the savings where a legal notice can get pretty pricey if you're posting those on your own. In addition, it can take up to a part-time position to manage a roster and give all the business support and process all the applications. So really, we're really taking up that administrative burden on behalf of our agencies. Businesses like it too. It's great for your business community because it allows your businesses to get listed with multiple agencies in their service areas, rather than having to go to so many different places to get signed up on individual rosters. So essentially what that does is it lowers the barrier for businesses to participate in this contracting process, and it really makes it more accessible and more equitable. So, like I mentioned, the legal notice is a big part of what we're offering here. This includes the statute-required posting to notify businesses of your rosters. And you can find more information about this on the website, and I'll show you how to navigate there in this video clip. The notices are posted the first Monday of January and June in newspapers of broad circulation per county. So some of our publications that we post in include the Seattle Daily Journal of Commerce, the Yakima Herald, the Spokesman Review, the Seattle Times, and so on. Generally, we are posting in larger papers with wider circulation. However, we do post in several small newspapers that are more local. We do have several agencies in rural areas where it's really important for them to be able to reach their local rural communities, which is why we are incorporating these small newspapers into our legal notice posting process. So this posting does fulfill the generally applicable state roster advertising requirements. It's important to keep in mind that if you have an internal agency policy to announce your rosters in a publication we do not post in, it would be your responsibility to either post your own notice in that case, or you can change your policy so that we meet your requirement. If you have a request for a separate paper that we don't currently publish in, we are open to considering that request. So just reach out to me and we'll chat about it. So of course, all that being said, the core of the roster's service is that we host public agency members' individual business rosters in the shared database. Specifically, the MRSC rosters membership includes the package hosting of your agency's individual small public works roster for businesses providing construction, repair, and maintenance, as referenced in RCW 3904-155, and your consultant roster for businesses that provide architecture, engineering, surveying, as defined by the A&E statute, as well as other professional services such as legal services and consultation services. Like I mentioned before, we also include a vendor roster component, which is optional. It doesn't cost more, but it's not part of the package. You would choose a separate contract that would include that option. The vendor roster is for supplier businesses and those who provide non-public works services, such as equipment repair or vehicle maintenance. And at this point, about 2/3 of our 608 members use the vendor roster component. I do want to emphasize that the MRSC rosters is not one roster shared by multiple jurisdictions through an interlocal agreement. Agencies join individually. We host their individual agency rosters in the database. That being said, if you are currently participating in an interlocal agreement with another agency, with a shared roster, you would have to terminate that agreement and let that other agency know that you are transitioning to this other service. They would then have the option to also join MRSC rosters if they would like to. And of course, once you decide, or if you do decide to join, you would want to make sure you're notifying your staff and business. In this short video clip, I'll show you where you can find transition templates. Essentially, we have just some verbiage, some templates you can download and just copy from for the kind of language you would want to use when communicating this change to your community and to your staff. That being said, I know that different agencies have different needs. Some folks might need more support or have more questions about switching over than others. So again, I'm here to walk through the process with you and support you. So at this point, you're probably thinking about your business community and wondering how it is that they would get connected with you through the MRSC rosters were you to choose to join the service. So we'll go ahead and talk about how businesses join MRSC rosters and walk through the registration and application process. Businesses who are interested in registering with any of the participating public agencies can join at any time, and they can join for free. And there's just a simple 3-step process that they would follow. And you can see in this short clip where they would navigate to on the website to create an account and complete the application. Essentially, so, step 1, they're going to create an account. Step 2, they're going to complete that application. And then step 3 is we are going to review that application to make sure it meets the minimum requirements for working with Washington public agencies. And then we'll send a confirmation of approval. We review new applications every 2 to 3 business days. If there is an urgent need for an agency to meet a deadline on solicitations for a project, we can expedite review processes, so that's not a problem. If we find that a business has provided us with inaccurate information in some way, specifically regarding, their contractor's license or their L&I account, then we'll work with the customer to get that straightened out so that we can make sure that we're giving them all the help they need to get onto the roster. Businesses are required to renew once a year, so we send out reminders to them to make sure that they don't miss that deadline. So that does mean, again, that's not something that you as the agency need to be communicating to the business about. We take care of that communication. So let's just, I guess, look at some of the specific parts of the business application. As with any roster application, the business is going to provide basic information about their company. So they'll include contact information, the type of business they are, and whatnot. All of the information that they're sharing in this application is accessible to you as the agency when you're downloading the entire application or exporting contacts. So as we walk through some of these sections, just know that's all stuff that you would be able to review. So initially, the business is going to select which roster types they want to be listed on. Small works, consultant, or vendor. They can select a combination of any of the 3. There's also the classifications and licenses section. We have an insurance section that is also required. We have the certification section, which is important. We know how significant that is when we're looking at, using or soliciting diverse businesses. So this is where the business can indicate if they're minority-owned, women-owned, business-owned. And again, all of this information is accessible to you when you're reviewing the business information. We also have the statement of qualifications section, which is required for consultants. They must upload their SOQ document. And there's an optional project summaries section, which just allows businesses to provide information about past projects that they've completed successfully. Not every business is going to fill out this section. It is optional, but Many do, which is helpful because you can review past work and look at the different agencies they may have served in the past. So really the main difference between a traditional roster application and what we provide is it's a bit more robust in the information it's asking for, but also the main difference is that the business itself can sign up on multiple rosters with multiple agencies in one place. And something I'll touch on quickly is that, again, it is free for businesses to register in the MRSC rosters with the basic application. There's a small $10 administrative fee if a basic member is deciding to be listed with 10 or more public agencies at one time. And this small fee just helps cover the administrative costs necessary to maintain the program and deliver access to businesses who need to be registered with us. I will mention as well that if this fee is ever a barrier to any of our businesses, if it seems like a burden to them, we waive the fee. So it's not something that would ever prevent someone from being able to be a member. Businesses do have the option to upgrade to what we call enhanced membership. This simply allows them to select service categories by a grouping, which you'll see later on. And it also allows them to select public agencies by grouping or to get listed with all agencies at one time. And when new agencies join, they're automatically added to the enhanced business application. So what I've seen is that mostly the businesses who are using this option are the businesses who have branches all across the state. They're the larger businesses and they serve a wider area. So it makes sense for them to be listed with more agencies. Most of our businesses are small businesses, which means most of them are using the basic application and they're getting listed within their regions of service. So at this point, we'll go ahead and talk about how businesses select the service categories that they provide in their application. So this section that you see here is where the business is going to indicate what services they provide. The service categories that they can choose from will be dictated by the roster types they chose before. So as you can see, there's a small works roster service category heading here. That means, that the business is selected to be listed on the small works roster, and now they can choose the categories that best fit what they provide. In this video, I'll show you what that process looks like. It's pretty straightforward. The business is just going to check the boxes next to the best service categories fitting what they, like I said, what they provide. If they're using the enhanced membership and they select to be listed by an entire grouping, we do have a pop-up window that reminds them or asks them, hey, are you sure you provide every single one of these services? We do our best to encourage businesses to choose accurately. Of course, we can't guarantee that a business is always going to choose all the most accurate service categories, but we do try to include prompts and educational materials that let them know that the best practice is to choose as accurately as possible. And we also have a way for them to submit service category suggestions if they don't see something that they believe should be there and fits what they're providing. So the next section that I'll go into more detail on is the public agency roster section. And this is where the business is going to choose which agency rosters they want to be listed on. And again, I'll play a short video clip here. Just like when we're talking about the services selection page, when the business is using the basic application, they're going to select agencies one by one with those check boxes. If they're using enhanced membership, they can select all. And that is, again, something that typically just our larger businesses with wide coverage for service are selecting. So once they've made that selection and they're happy with their selected agencies, they just move on in the process, save and continue. So once that business has completed all of these required sections, they're going to submit their application to us for review. And like I mentioned, we review applications every 2 to 3 business days. And the business is not going to be actively registered and searchable in the database until they've received that confirmation email from us letting them know they've been approved. We make sure that the businesses meet the minimum Washington state eligibility requirements to work with Washington public agencies, which means all businesses must have a valid Washington UBI number, an active Department of Revenue account, and a federal tax ID number. There are some exceptions made for out-of-state vendors who are specifically just sending goods or providing software. So those are case-by-case basis, and we work with the business to make sure that it's legitimate, but otherwise all businesses must have this valid Washington UBI number, etc. Small works contractors cannot be debarred from public works projects, and they need to have an active workers' comp premium status if applicable. So that's where we're checking with L&I to make sure that that is good to go. We also are now checking to make sure that the business or the contractor has completed the required training that L&I has been requiring now since July of 2019. So that is something that we indicate in the application and is information that you as the agency can review. And again, like I mentioned earlier, consultants must upload a general statement of qualifications. So if the business meets all of these qualifications, we'll send them that confirmation email and they'll be registered for a year. They'll then be required to renew once a year. And again, if we have questions about their application, we will work with that business one-on-one to get more clarification and do all we can to make sure they can get registered. Now, although we do verify business eligibility prior to registration on the rosters, I have to say it is still the agency's responsibility to verify the business qualifications prior to awarding a contract. We do not re-verify business qualifications when the business renews, but they are required to renew, which does help them keep that information up to date. And so that's our best way of sort of ensuring that they have the opportunity to make sure their information is accurate. So now I want to, excuse me, move on to how member agencies search for businesses. And if you have questions that are specific to what we went over already, you can submit those if it's top of mind. We'll get to the questions at the end, but if you're kind of holding on to a question, worried you might forget it, go ahead and submit it. And we'll hop into the public agency section. So if you become a member of our service and you are deciding to use a roster contracting process, you're going to approach it this way. First, and probably most obviously, you're going to log into your account. So I'll just show you what this process looks like, entering your username and password. Just so you know, multiple folks can be registered or can be logged in to the account at one time. So you're not going to get kicked out. If someone in one department is in there and then someone from another department wants to log in, that's not a problem. Once you log in, you land at this sort of home page, and you can see there are a few different ways of grabbing business information. So the most often used, the most useful is going to be this first option where you're searching by a roster type. But there are a couple other options that I'll touch on just so you're familiar with the interface and what that would look like on your end. So one option is to download the business contacts. So you might want to contact all of your business contacts if you have an event coming up or a workshop or a riveting webinar like this one. And that way you can just grab that spreadsheet and copy paste those email addresses and reach out to all those folks. Another option that I'll touch on is the search for a business. When you've already been working with a business or you're curious if a business is listed with you, you can search for that business and actually look at their entire application. This can be really handy. There's the link to their L&I account. You can download their statement of qualifications document from here as well. So it's just a useful little tool to use from time to time. But again, primarily, you're going to be using this search and generate a roster option. So what you would first do is select the roster type. You want to search by like the small works roster. And then from there, you would be able to select service categories to essentially filter by. And this looks a lot like the business service categories section because you are searching by the same services that the business has selected by. So in this video, you can see, again, you're going to put check marks next to the individual categories you're looking for. You can select one category if you're just looking for one item. You can select multiple categories if you're looking for a business who might provide multiple services. If it's the case that you're looking for a business that provides multiple services, such as, when you're selecting an entire section, then I would say you'll want to be sure to select that box that says search only for small works businesses who perform, match all the categories that I've selected. That's going to ensure that you're not asking for a search for a business who supplies, stream restoration or concrete barriers. You're searching for someone who provides both of those things. That'll just give you a more accurate list at the end of the search process. And you'll notice too, you can filter for emergency work. So all businesses are able to indicate if they can provide emergency work, and therefore you can select that option so that you're getting connected with businesses who provide that. So once you've made your selections, you click that search businesses button, and that's going to give you your initial roster here. And this is the screen where you would end up, and it's going to indicate, the search that you conducted. And then it will also give you a list of the businesses. And you'll also on this page, if you're using the consultant roster, you can download all of the SOQ documents on this page as well. Something to note about this section is that you must click to print or save this initial document. That's for your record retentions. You want to have that initially generated list to ensure that you're keeping that paper trail of how you went through this process. Hopefully, folks don't get audited too often. I know it's not fun, but if you are, you have all of the information to provide to show that you went through the right process. So that's why we require that. Before we move on to the next slide, I'm just going to touch on how businesses end up on your generated roster. So they're going to end up on your roster because they selected your agency in one of three ways. They individually selected your specific agency, or they used enhanced membership and selected to be listed with all participating agencies in the county where you are located, or they used enhanced membership and selected to be listed statewide. And obviously they would have had to select a service category or service categories that you also searched by. And that's why you'll end up with the list that you end up with. So as with any roster individually maintained by an agency or hosted by us, businesses are not required to be physically located in your jurisdiction. Therefore, we don't have an option to filter by location. You can see where the businesses are located. I'll show you at the end where you can grab a spreadsheet and it will give you their physical addresses. But you will have businesses on your roster that are not located in your city, and probably some that are not located in your county. Also, keep in mind that there are businesses that will be automatically listed on your roster because they have selected your county or they've selected to be listed statewide. So, when you join, they're automatically listed with you. But again, we announce to all of our business members, that new agencies join. So that gives all of our business members the opportunity to select you individually. No one is left in the dark. We're very communicative about this because, of course, we want to make sure that no matter, if the business is using a free membership or not, everyone gets the same information and the same opportunity. Now, after you continue to the next section, you'll be brought to this page, which is determine how many businesses to solicit. The easiest way to meet equitability requirements is to solicit a project opportunity to all businesses. And, I would just suggest you click solicit businesses to proceed without narrowing your results. That being said, sometimes you might have a really long list of businesses, and additionally, you may have an internal policy that allows you to contact only a few businesses, like 3 to 5 businesses at a time, and then have a rotational process so you're, following appropriate steps and standards. So there is this option to narrow your roster results. And I'll just sort of give you a quick little video clip to show you what that looks like. So if you check that checkbox, you'll then be able to select the businesses that you want to contact. I'll mention too quickly that if you're determining who to contact, especially if you're using like the consultant roster and you're contacting folks based on their qualifications after reviewing their SOQ documents, you can download their applications. These business names are linked, so when you click on them, it will open their application. But again, you'll narrow that list, and you'll again need to save this or print this list now that it's been shortened because it's been altered. So you need to track that as well. So that's why that's a requirement to print or download. And then once you do that, you can then click the solicit businesses button to move on to the final page. So you'll land on this last page, and this is where you can grab the contact information and reach out to your businesses with your RFQs. So this first option, and again, I have a little video clip here. Like I mentioned before, you grab that spreadsheet. This is going to include all of the contact information, including the physical business address. So again, this is where you can see specifically where your businesses are located. Again, it's, like I mentioned before, it includes the certification information as well. So I think that that's pretty helpful when you're just trying to have, a report that shows like how many women-owned businesses have you considered, how many minority-owned, and etc. You didn't see it in this spreadsheet, but we also include, an indicator if the business has completed the L&I required training. We include whether or not the business is classified as a small business. So there is some valuable information in this spreadsheet, and I really find that this is the most helpful document to make sure that you are downloading at the end of the whole search process. And it's also cool because it makes it easy to sort of just like track who's responded to your RFQ or who hasn't, and it's all just in this ready-made spreadsheet. In a more simple way, you can just, email all contacts by clicking this icon, and it will open up your default email client. So if you use Outlook, it would generally just pop into Outlook. I will say that, some agencies would rather BCC all businesses. So it might, you might want to, copy, cut, paste the addresses into the BCC. Other agencies have a policy where they keep all the addresses in the to field for transparency. So that's really something where you would have to decide based on your policies and procedures internally what's best for you. But just wanted to point that out. Otherwise, the email addresses are, automatically inserted there, and you can attach your RFQ document, include the information, and send this out to businesses. And lastly, there's just a basic copy and paste function. It's kind of mimics what we just talked about, but it allows you to copy, paste, and use a different email client if it's not automatically populating the way you want it to, or if you intend to send something out later, you're not ready right away, you can copy the email addresses and save them and have them for later. So now that we've covered how all of this works, we'll go ahead and talk about the few items you need to know if you're intending to join by the upcoming December 1st deadline. So first, you would determine the contract type that you would use. So again, there is the Small Works and Consultant contract that would allow you to have access to the Small Works and Consultant roster. And then alternatively, there's the Small Works Consultant and Vendor rosters contract, which gives you access to the vendor roster in addition to the others. There's no extra cost for that. It really just depends on your agency's needs. Some agencies, some hospital districts have very specific vendor type needs, and so they find it sometimes more helpful to maintain their own vendor roster than using ours. But it's really just varies agency to agency. So once you've selected the contract you wish to use, of course, you're going to want to obtain the appropriate authorization. So that might mean bringing the contract to council or to the board for approval. And I'll show you where you can find the contracts in a second on the website. We also have a sample resolution. If you don't already have a resolution passed or an ordinance that allows you to use a roster contracting process, that might be something you also need to consider. Once you have that contract all filled out and ready for us, you can submit it to us. I'll say, especially now, it's best to email a scanned document just because we are all working from home most of the time, and it's much faster and simpler for us to receive email than physical mail. But if you do send us a physical contract in the mail, please alert me by email and let me know to be on the lookout for it. Lastly, if you currently maintain your own roster and you need to announce, that you're making this change, then I would say don't announce this change until after December 1st. Your account would become active on December 1st. That's when businesses would start being able to get signed up with you through MRSC rosters. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at, your communications plan. So again, like I said, I just want to show you where you can find the contract and the sample resolution. So click on the Public Agency tab at the top of the page, scroll down. Here's the sample resolution under the first block of text in the text box, and then the membership contract here. Our mailing address and other contact information is also listed, so it should all be pretty straightforward. But again, if you're going through this process, you have questions, let us know. So finally, just to recap, this service provides a pretty great value for what we do as far as the administrative upkeep, the assistance we offer to our business members, and again, it includes that legal notice posting, which is pretty helpful for a lot of folks. It's also great for your business community. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it just really gives them a more equitable, accessible way to participate in a roster contracting process in Washington State. Businesses that want to sign up and work with agencies can sign up for free at any time, and we offer all the needed customer support for that. Joining will, again, it will just lift a burden from your lap if you are kind of grappling with the application processing and the renewal processing and all of that. So we'll take that off your plate. If your agency is interested in joining, the deadline is December 1st. That means you would begin actual official use in January 2021 after we get that legal notice published for you. So all that being said, I will go ahead and hop into answering any questions. I see one that has come in, so as a reminder, just expand your toolbar on the side of your screen, expand the question box, and send those questions into us. So the question that I've seen come in now is, let's see, the question is, will there be an option to search by location in the future? As far as I know, the only way we would incorporate that kind of feature is if there was a change to legislation. So if the RCW changed, or there was, some update that allowed preference by location, then we would definitely work that into our service. At this point, we don't have any plans to do so because we haven't gotten any news that that's changing. I know that there are some agencies who will include in their bid requirements certain needs for, timely service, ability to call upon a vendor should repair be necessary within a certain window of time. So that's a good way to indicate to folks that they need to be at least within a physical proximity that would allow them to provide the service that you need. If you have more questions about that, or you're looking for examples or sample documents, we have MRSC consultants, specifically Judy Isaac. She's a great resource, and I know she talks to folks about this issue quite often because it is a hot topic. So I would always encourage you to reach out with an inquiry. Another question, what is the cost of the enhanced membership? So businesses who choose to use the enhanced membership, the fee starts at $75 annually and ranges up to $1,125 annually, I believe. This is based on the type of business and the size of the business. So we have very few businesses who are paying that top tier. Those who are large consultancies. So it doesn't typically present a financial burden, to those folks who are running those large consultancies. They're doing pretty well. So it doesn't present a burden in that way. But again, if there are businesses, especially now, businesses who are struggling, we're always talking to businesses one-on-one, not only just asking for their feedback, but also letting them know that, you know, we're not here to erect barriers. You know, we're here to provide access. So if it's a barrier for them, we work with them on that. Another question I see that has come in. With the basic membership, does the business have to completely reapply each year? No, all of the business information is stored always. So all they need to do is click through and, you know, update anything that's out of date and submit it to us, and that's it. So it's really simple, and we don't make it so that they have to re-enter everything. That would be a pretty painful process. I know that, like, when I do my taxes, I pay so that I can, like, pull my information that I entered last year, which seems unfair to me. We don't do that to our businesses. We make sure that all of their information is always there for them. Even if their account becomes deactivated in the system because they forget to renew, their information is not deleted or wiped. It's there so that when they reactivate, they don't have to start from scratch. And then it looks like we have another question. When a business completes the application, can they print, download their completed application? So yes, once it's approved, they can log into their account and they can download a PDF or print their entire completed application. So that's definitely something that they can do. They have access to that. Yeah. It looks like that might be the last question. So that's fantastic. I really appreciate everyone hanging in here and participating and asking great questions. Just as a reminder, you can start sending in those contracts starting November 1st, but if it comes early, hey, we'll take it. Just know that your account would become active December 1st. And I'll get my, okay. Oh, another question came in, so let's see. This looks great and seems to be priced reasonably. Why would an agency not use your services? Great question. There are a variety of reasons. So some agencies just have a pretty robust system already set up for their roster. So I'll give an example of, like, King County. They have their own roster, they maintain it themselves. It's a whole part of their agency, right? So it wouldn't make as much sense for them to transition over to use our service. And other entities, very small agencies, for example, a rural fire district who has, you know, maybe doesn't really have a need or just isn't using a roster contracting process, they might just continue to do what they're doing when it comes to advertising job opportunities when they come up, which is generally infrequent. So they wouldn't even get much use out of having a roster. So those are a couple reasons. It really can vary depending on the agency, but again, it's interesting, right? We have large agencies like Pierce County, City of Spokane, even Sound Transit uses, you know, our roster. And so large agencies do find it useful and valuable. And we have the majority of our agencies are small agencies and they find it useful. So I think it really just depends on where is the agency at right now. Do they have a need for using a roster and they're not using it yet? Do they find their current roster burdensome? And I think it also comes down to this issue of finding ways to make this process more accessible to more businesses, because I think a lot of agencies are prioritizing equitability, and this is one way to sort of do better in that area. And it's by no means perfect. I mean, we have a lot of things we can improve upon. We're not a software company, so we don't have as much money to make make it as fancy as we would like to, but again, we keep it affordable, we keep it accessible, and we keep it grounded in the intention of service rather than necessarily selling a really shiny product. So hopefully that answers your question. And again, I would say really it's to reach out to the folks in your area who are already using this is going to be a great resource, because you can find out what they like about it, you can find out what they don't like about it, and see, you know, if that's the right choice for you. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question. And then it looks like that is our last question. So that was a fun one. It's pretty thoughtful, and I know that there's not one right answer, which I like those kinds of questions. So in closing, I just again want to thank everybody for being here, and again thank you for allowing us to experiment with the closed captioning. I noticed that there were some funny little spellings, which, you know, I guess that's part of the nature of this. But again, thank you for being willing to be our guinea pigs on that. Again, submit your contract by December 1st if you're interested in participating. If you want like a sample roster because you want to see what that would look like, what businesses might already be in our system, let me know. That's something I can provide. And if you have more questions, reach out to me, check out the website. And again, yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. Take care, stay safe, and stay healthy.